This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Well, financial markets are waiting with, I think it's fair to say, bated breath to see what comes out of Congress in terms of more fiscal stimulus, something we should know within the next week or two. We bring in now someone who will be helping make that decision. She is Senator Shelley Capito. She is the senator from West Virginia. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Give us a sense of where we are. We got jobless numbers out today that were disappointing in that the weekly claims went up for the first time since March. Does that add more impetus to the need to have more fiscal stimulus?
Well, I did see those numbers, and I was hoping that they would go down. But I think that we've seen with this second wave, obviously, some reclosing of certain facilities, leading, I think, probably to the higher unemployment. Here's why I think we've done the right thing by waiting a couple of months. I think we've been able to assess where we are, who else needs assistance, who's falling through the cracks, and so I think that we're going to target this next recovery package to those kinds of concerns, whether it's schools, whether it's more vaccine development, or whether it's some small businesses that are still very much struggling and people still without a job. So I feel optimistic we can get there, but I think that, you know, seeing what's happened over the last several weeks certainly helps us make those targeted assistance much more meaningful.
Well, Senator, as you say, I mean, Congress has already done an awful lot, let's be fair here, but in doing it very quickly, it had to be sort of a blanket approach. There was no alternative. You couldn't get too subtle with it. Now that you've had that experience, what are the targets? And talk about small business. I know that's very important to you in West Virginia. Is it the size of the business? How can you figure out which businesses really need the help and which don't need it as badly?
Well, I think what we probably are going to be looking at here is a reform of a PPP program where we'll probably lower the number of eligible employers to maybe 300 employees and under. And also, I think we should be asking them to demonstrate their loss. In other words, let's not just blanket approach it. Let's make sure that we are pinpointing any kind of loan and loan forgiveness with the very successful PPP program to those businesses that really are having a severe downturn or are unable to reopen. So that's one of the ways, and small businesses is the backbone really probably of the country, but certainly a smaller state like mine. I've talked to many small businesses that can't go full bore, and they need some more assistance.
So, Senator, there's also a lot of discussion about that supplemental unemployment insurance that's due to expire at the end of next week, $600 a week. There's some concern that that might have been too big, at least as a flat amount across the country. There's different costs of living, for example, across the country and different pay structures. What do you think is the right answer on that?
Well, that was a 4-month program we put into practice that for every week would be an extra $600, and it resulted in a lot of people really making more money than they've made in their job, and so it's provided a disincentive for many people to go back to work. So our smaller employers, our small businesses, our restaurants and others are really having trouble calling people back. A small manufacturer might have the same issue. So, you know, I'm personally not in favor of extending the $600 a week because I think because of that incentive that I think we're seeing across the country. But I don't think we can drop people off of a cliff here. And so I think maybe some gradual work down or working with the unemployment insurance commissioners across the states to make sure that you're not going to make any more money on unemployment than you would, you know, at your job. But we've really got to get people that are able to go back to work, make sure that they do go back to work and are not incentivized by programs we create to stay on unemployment.
Senator Capito, you also mentioned schools particularly, and as we are very mindful of the need to get back to school in some form, whether virtual or literally in the classroom, what kind of support is required for the school system? Because that's going to cost a lot of money for schools across the country to adapt to a social distancing world.
Well, I think the first, the bill that Senator McConnell's putting forward has approximately $105 billion for schools, 70 for K through 12, and then 30 for colleges and universities, and another $5 billion for the governors to make those determinations. What I see in my local communities is the schools are not set up to be social distanced. They're not set up to be cleaned properly and as frequently and as deeply as they're going to need to do. We also have the issue with broadband. I mean, we've got a lot of our students who are unconnected. And can we fix that in 30 to 60 days? Probably not, but we can help our schools create hotspots, portable hotspots, equipment that the students can take home with them. But I personally think we got to get these schools open. We've got to this is where we're going to get back to life as normal, by having our students in place. And at the college and university level, I think you'll probably see a combination there of in-class, virtual. And I think at that point, we've got to impress upon the student population that it's important that you maintain smart living, you know, and because, I mean, our bars and stuff, that's a problem because college students have a tendency to congregate there, and we want to make sure they're being careful. At least I did when I was in college, I'll say that.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, having some children either now or have been in college, it's hard to control them, too, when they're in college. No question about it. Looking back at West Virginia, and you look at the public schools in West Virginia, you said it's not necessarily prepared for social distancing. Is it prepared for remote learning? I mean, what's going to happen in West Virginia with the public schools?
You know, it's been a hodgepodge in West Virginia. Some school systems have been, ours are run by the county, so we have 55. Some school systems have been able to move forward with that, and we're prepared. Others, particularly in our lower income areas, really struggled and basically just threw up their hands and said, you know, we're just going to call it a day here on the end of school and start back in September. But there are other issues that I think are important not to overlook about getting students into the classroom. Many times the teacher is an adult who can oversee the child in other ways besides cognitive learning, their emotional well-being, whether they're getting nutrition or not. So there's other things, whether their parents can go back to work is another big element to this. So, I mean, I think the physical reopening of our schools in a safe way possible is what I think we've got to have that as our end game, and hopefully sooner than later.
So from your vantage point up there on Capitol Hill, when are we going to have a bill? And by the way, will it be one bill or two? Because yesterday there was reports maybe we'd handle unemployment insurance right away and then deal with the other in the next week or two.
Well, I think if that's the case, that we have something that handles unemployment, it's because the cutoff date is July 31st, and we might not get the full bill done before then. I'm hoping to have it fully completed by August the 7th, and I mean on the president's desk by then. We got a lot of work to do. I think we'll see something very definitive this afternoon, at least from Republicans, and then we'll get the reactions. I know that Secretary Mnuchin and Chief of Staff Meadows were meeting with Speaker Pelosi and with the Democrat leader here, Chuck Schumer, to try to get some kind of compromise language going. So we're a long way, but these things, we've worked really well together on this particular aspect, and I hope that it doesn't get into it's in the political arena, absolutely, but it doesn't get so bogged down in it that we can't complete our task, because there are still many people that are hurting and have high expectations for us.
There are so many people that are hurting. The question is, when will they not be hurting? And of course, we can't know that. The virus is going to determine that. But I dare say that when Congress came up with more than $2 trillion help before, a lot of us thought, well, that will do it, because by the time that expires, then we really will be getting the economy back to going. Are we going to have to, as a practical matter, be having this discussion again and again until there's a vaccine?
Boy, I'm with you. I certainly hope not. I mean, I certainly hope that we're able to contain, and that the few hot spots that we have, we target resources there. That I think makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, we have counties in our state that have a handful, single-digit cases that have now all resolved themselves. So there's no reason that we can't move forward in a safe way in those areas across the country. I mean, I think that's what the governors are advocating and are doing. At the same time, we've got to make sure that this vaccine development comes as quickly as we're hoping. Now, I heard in committee as soon as January the 1st, and that would be an amazing thing, and maybe more than one. And I think that's going to go a long way. But at the same time, we still have to have testing. And I just think if you've been out and been in a gathering of any kind of people that are socially distanced, people are hungry for human interaction. And I think we need to, you know, loosen the reins so that we can do that in the areas where it's proven to be contained.
At the same time, Senator, it doesn't seem to be working right now in places like Florida and Texas and California. Did we loosen the reins too much?
Well, I think those are the determinations that the governors are making. I mean, our own governor, we had a hot spot in Morgantown and some other parts, southern parts of our state. So the governor says, all right, we're going to have, you can't be in a place with more than 25 people. It had been at 100. We're going to close the bars in Morgantown because that's where we think in contact tracing a lot of this is being passed on. And so I think that's what the governors are within their realm to be able to do. And then, you know, we should be following the instructions of wearing masks and other things. you know, I think until we get the vaccine, we are obviously treating this a lot better than we were before because of the lower hospitalizations. But we still, I still think it's a very looming, and it's on everybody's mind, as it should be.
Yeah. That's for sure. Thank you so much, Senator. Really appreciate you being with us. That's Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia.